Hey friends, welcome back to the quiet corner of YouTube, where the candles are always guttering, the fire crackles just enough to lull you toward sleep, and the Middle Ages never smelled of roses. Before we shuffle down tonight's shadow-damp alleyway, do me a quick favor. Tap the like button if you genuinely dig these midnight rambles, and slide into the comments to tell me what city or maybe what cozy couch you're tuning in from, at what ungodly hour it is there. I love seeing the roll call from insomniacs and history nerds around the globe. And of course, if you want more dreamy misery from the past, hit subscribe and ring the little bell so the algorithm remembers to wake you up next time we start whispering. Okay? Candlelight low, blankets up, fan humming? Good. Let's crawl into tonight's story. You, dear traveler, are about to discover why it truly, spectacularly sucked to be a medieval tax collector. Picture yourself pulling a rough wool cloak tighter against a drizzle that never seems to stop. The year? Let's call it 1327. Slot yourself somewhere in the half-imagined borderlands between England and Wales, though honestly you could be in Castile, Anjou, or Saxony and little would change. You've got a ledger under one arm, a purse of copper coins jangling at your belt, and a stomach that's already tying itself into uneasy knots. Because no matter how sturdy your boots, no matter how official the seal dangling from your wooden tally stick, you know that every front door you knock on today could swing wide with a curse, a cudgel, or, if you're absurdly lucky, merely the stench of old stew. Let's clear up a myth. Nobody was born dreaming of this career. No 5-year-old in the thatched cottage whispered, "When I grow up, I crave the thrill of peasants spitting at my feet while livestock nibble my cloak." You became a collector because something in life went sideways. Maybe you were the younger son of a minor bailiff, cut out of the family inheritance. Maybe a failed harvest shoved you from your tiny plot and into the service of Lord Ever-so-Forgettable of Shire by the Mud. Or maybe you were halfway clever with numbers, and someone at court thought, "That one looks literate enough. Hand him a tally stick and pray he doesn't skim too much off the top." It was a job, yes, but it was the sort of job you whispered about while scanning for exits. First problem, everybody hated you. The miller hated you because you measured his grain and shorted his daughter's dowry. The brewer hated you because ale tasted worse once the king's share was siphoned off. The abbot loathed you in holy Latin, and the local reeve muttered in vulgar English. Even the lord you served eyed you sideways, worried you'd pocket an off-color penny before passing the bag upward. Collectors inhabited that special medieval tier, above the leper but below the stray dog. Essential, yet despised, like a rat in the granary that occasionally ate spiders. And it wasn't just abstract hatred. It was physical, spittle-damp, breath-hot persecution. Imagine trudging into a hamlet where the only stone building is the church, and every pair of eyes lifts from the meager winter turnips to stare at you, slowly, like cows considering whether to charge. You clear your throat, announce the purpose of your visit, brandish the seal of authority. No one smiles. Children hide behind skirts. Somewhere, a rooster crows like it's mocking you. You begin your tally. So many farthings per hearth, so many sheaves of rye per acre. And that's when the muttering starts. because in their eyes, you're not a human with fears and sore feet. You're the embodiment of royal greed, the walking sum total of every unjust fine, every church tithe, every grain tithe, every random levy invented to pay for some far-off war or the dowry of a princess they'll never meet. You are the reason their soup is thin, their shoes full of holes, and their dreams brittle as frost. And you feel that hatred settle on your shoulders like an iron yoke each time you scrawl a mark in the ledger. Now, let's talk equipment. Fantasy games picture collectors with feathered hats and wax-sealed documents. Reality hands you a warped wooden tally stick notched with careful cuts. One per coin due, a deeper notch for a shilling, maybe an X carved for a whole mark. The stick is split in half, so both you and your lord hold a matching record. Early fraud prevention. You also wield a purse that never feels heavy enough for the risk you take, plus a tiny inkwell and quill if you're one of the rare literate ones. No sword. Maybe a short club if you're bold, but weapons raise questions. Are you here to collect or to pillage? Too much steel, and the villagers may decide to strike first. Let's address travel. Roads? You slog through waist-high mud that could swallow an ox. Bridges collapse at the rumor of rain. Every ford hides slippery stones, and every copse harbors wolves, or worse, men who would relieve you of coins and life in one breath. You're alone most of the time, because sending guards with you costs extra, and your employer hates extra. So you march, day after day, shins chafed, parchment damp, mind buzzing with sums you mutter like prayers so you won't forget before transcribing them onto the split stick. Food? Whatever you can grab on the road. Hard cheese if you're flush, stale bread if you're not. Occasionally a begrudging villager tosses you a heel of brown loaf to soften your temper. You pretend it helps. At night you beg lodgings in barns. You sleep beside cows for warmth, nose filled with manure and sour milk. If you're very lucky, the local priest allows you a corner near the altar. Holy draughts whistling through cracked glass, but at least fewer fleas. And all the while that purse of coins throbs at your waist, daring every sleepless stranger to slit it free. Here's the secret horror: bookkeeping. Because the only thing worse than undercharging a village is overcharging it. Too little, and your lord accuses you of theft. Too much, and the peasants riot. Both outcomes end with your body swinging from something. A tree in the hamlet square, or a gallows outside the castle. So at night, by flickering rushlight, you double-check each notch, weigh each penny, mutter each name. Numbers swim before your eyes. You pray to saints of arithmetic. They don't exist, but you try anyway. That the ledger balances by the time you hand it over. Now, picture the annual audit. Yes, medieval audits were a thing. You kneel in the drafty hall, present the tally stick halves. Clerks, who smell faintly of ink and superiority, compare each notch like judges measuring sin. If wood and parchment don't match, if one tiny scratch is missing, eyebrows arch. The sheriff leans forward, and you feel sweat creep down your spine because maybe you miscounted that miller's oats when rain blurred the marks. Or maybe termites nibbled the stick as you slept in that barn. Doesn't matter. Discrepancy equals guilt. Penalties vary. fines, stocks, sometimes a brief stay in the dungeon to reflect on mathematical morality. Speaking of dungeons, let's talk corruption, because you're tempted. Everyone is. A widow thrusts 2 copper pennies into your palm, whispers that her son is sick and can't afford another levy. She begs you to lower her assessment. Those pennies could buy you a warm cloak or pay for passage on the ferry instead of braving the flooded ford. You hesitate. Mercy costs, but so does disobedience. Refuse, and you break a heart. Accept, and you risk being discovered. The line between compassion and bribery, as thin as parchment soaked in rain. Some collectors slip into full villainy. They inflate dues, pocket the surplus, blame royal policy. It works until it doesn't. One winter night, torches flare outside your cottage. Villagers arrive masked in soot, wielding flails meant for grain, but eager for flesh. They drag you into the frost, demand the hidden coins. You sob that you spent them on food. They spit. The morning sun rises over your battered body as a warning to the next poor soul with a ledger. If peasants don't end you, plague might. You walk house to house, breathing whatever miasma festers in damp corners. You shake hands, accept coins coated in who knows what. Coughing children tug your cloak. Rats scurry over your boots. Pestilence loves a crowd, and you create one wherever you appear. Villagers gathering to hear you recite the king's demands. One swollen lymph node under your arm, and your career and lungs are finished. Let's eavesdrop on your thoughts the night before collection day. You lie on a straw mattress, counting ceiling spiders as if they're coins. Your brain replays worst-case scenarios. A farmer whose harvest failed, brandishing a hay fork. The bailiff demanding why your sums are short. A hidden bandit lurking between oak trees. You promise God, St. Matthew, patron of accountants, and any lingering household sprite, that if you survive tomorrow, you'll join a monastery, or at least stop watering your ale. Sleep comes fitful, thick with dreams of numbers multiplying into snarling beasts. Dawn breaks. Cock crow. Time to rise and don the cloak still damp from yesterday's fog. You pace the barn, rehearsing your opening speech, firm yet polite. You imagine smiling. Don't. Smiling looks like mockery when you're taking a man's last groat. Better a solemn nod. Outside, your borrowed mule snorts. You load the saddlebags with blank parchment, sharpen stylus, spare shoelaces, because inevitably one will snap in mud. With a sigh deeper than the village well, you set off down the rutted lane. First stop, the blacksmith. Sparks dance as he hammers iron. Clang, hiss, curse. He wipes sweat, glares. You clear your throat. Hearth tax, 4 pence. He pays in coins still warm from his fist. You note the notch. As you leave, you feel his stare burn between shoulder blades, sharper than any dagger. Next, the widow's cottage. Smoke curling from a chimney that leaks worse than your shoes. You announce the livestock tithe, 1 hen due. She stiffens, clutching the only plump bird in her coop. It flaps, squawking protest at cosmic injustice. She hands it over, eyes shining with tears she'll never let fall. You tie its legs, add its weight to your pity. By midday, you've gathered 2 hens, a cheese, 3 coins, and enough resentment to fill a cistern. You pause under an oak, gnawing bread. A crow lands, eyeing the tied hens. You and the crow share a moment of mutual recognition. Both scavengers in black, both misunderstood, both likely to be thrown stones at. You almost apologize to the bird for the resemblance. Afternoon brings the manor's steward, a man who reeks of arrogance and lavender. He insists your accounting is off by a shilling. He's certain the domain should be rated lower. You suspect he's hiding profits from wool sales. He suspects you of inflating dues. It's a stalemate of subtle threats. You stand your ground because to back down invites accusations of weakness. Eventually he pays, flinging the coin like he's feeding swine. It lands in your palm, heavier than lead. Exhausted, you trudge back toward the barn. The hens cluck mournfully. Coins jangle like chains. You consider the road not taken. Maybe you should have apprenticed to that cooper years ago. Barrels may be boring, but staves rarely punch you in the face. Too late now. Duty demands you continue this grim pilgrimage tomorrow and the day after until the ledger is full or you are empty. Night again. You count, recount, whisper prayers. Somewhere distant, wolves howl. Closer still, a villager mutters your name like a curse. You wonder if the devil takes ledgers. If so, his will be immaculate. So there you are, bone-tired, mistrusted by all, crushed between royal greed and peasant misery. And we've only made it through one soggy day in the life of a medieval tax collector. Imagine a whole season of this, snow and famine included. But that, dear listener, slipping toward sleep, is for another evening. You wake before dawn because that cursed rooster mistakes starlight for sunrise. Your cloak smells worse after a night absorbing barnyard perfumes. But there's no time to dwell. Today is High Collection Day, meaning the crown expects heavier sums, and the villagers know it. Your ledgers are half full, your purse may be a quarter, and both need fattening before the fortnight audit. So you tie the hens to the rafters. They screech, wings flapping like broken bellows. Gulp a mouthful of sour ale left in a wooden cup, and trudge out. First light paints the lane a sickly gray. Mist rises from dung piles, and your breath clouds in front of you. You force yourself to hum a ditty, something about St. Dunstan twisting the devil's nose with tongs. Ironic comfort for a man about to pinch wallets. The path bends toward a row of hovels you skipped yesterday. You rehearsed your approach all night, firm but merciful. The treasury would prefer firm. Your conscience begs mercy. Conscience rarely pays well. The first door belongs to old Len, a widow renowned for brewing nettle soup so bitter it could cleanse sin. She opens, face lined like cracked leather. One eye is clouded, a milky orb fixed somewhere beyond you. The other eye, sharp as a fox, tracks every twitch in your cheek. "Hearth tax," you croak, "4 farthings." She spits sideways, the universal village punctuation mark. "That stove went cold after my husband died," she snarls. "You tax ghosts now?" You consider the letter of the law. Any hearth capable of fire counts, even if unused. She knows that. You know that. Your stylus hovers. Finally, you scratch half the dew and whisper, 2. She digs the coins from a pouch tied beneath her apron, dropping each into your palm as though casting curses. You pocket them, heart pounding, praying the sheriff never asks why Linnane's tally is light. The compromise feels like both sin and salvation. As you walk away, guilt sidles up. For every lenient notch, you must squeeze someone else harder, or you'll be accused of theft. And there's the next cottage, Thomas the Reeve, smug overseer of the Lord's fields. Yesterday he pretended not to hear your knock. Today you ram your knuckles on the warped plank. He answers still belting his tunic, eyes dull from too much ale. You greet him with false cheer. "Mornin'! Beautiful day for accountin'!" He grunts. You announce the grain levy, 3 bushels. He scoffs, claims frost ruined the harvest. You point at sacks stacked just inside, oats spilling like proof. Tension thickens. He offers 1 bushel and a promise. Promises don't fill coffers. You think of the audit. You think of Lean's discount. You brace your feet. 3, you repeat. His lip curls. "You'll take 2 or you'll take nothing. This village feeds soldiers who defend your skinny hide." You meet his gaze, pulse hammering. The tally stick flashes in your mind, missing notches, missing coins, missing skin from your back after flogging. You draw a shaky line in the dirt with your boot. 3. The word tastes like iron. He slams the door. For one awful second, you fear he'll fetch an axe. But the latch lifts, and he drags out 3 sacks, each heavier than guilt. You mark the tally, knotting stick and conscience tighter. Victory tastes like mildew. By noon, the satchels on your mule bulge. Grain, hens, a string of onions, coins clinking beneath layers of hay. Weight enough to attract thieves. You decide to detour through the royal forest, hoping bandits avoid patrolled paths. The forest is hushed. Sunbeams stab through leaves like lances, and distant wood doves coo as though mocking your paranoia. Halfway in, hoofbeats. Too many for hunters. You freeze, hand landing on the stubby club at your belt, a twig pretending to be a weapon. Out of the fern gloom emerge 2 mounted men in patched jerkins, eyes sharp, beards sharper. Not official, definitely hungry. "Good day, collector," the taller one purrs. "Bandits always know your profession. The purse announces you like a bell. Out early, aren't we?" You attempt nonchalance. "Merely carrying His Majesty's revenues. Best you let us pass." The shorter rider laughs, revealing a gap where 3 teeth should be. "We're patriots, friend. We'll safeguard the king's treasure." He nudges his horse closer. Your mule snorts, ears flattening. You could run if mud didn't glue your boots. Instead, you gamble. Gentlemen, consider this. You rob me, soldiers hunt you. You gain a bag of pennies, I lose my head. But what if I misplace a mere tithe? With shaking fingers, you fish 5 silver pennies, an enormous sum, from the purse. A gesture of goodwill. They exchange looks. Robbing you entirely risks gallows. Accepting a bribe? Lower stakes. The tall one reaches, plucks the coins, weighs them with the practiced flip of a gambler. Generous, he nods. We'll escort you to the far road so no other scoundrels disturb you. King deserves his due. Your knees liquefy, but you manage a curt bow. They flank you until the forest thins, then vanish like smoke. You exhale a prayer, part gratitude, part regret. 5 pennies gone. Which villagers will bleed to replace them? Evening drapes the sky when you reach the manor village of Gresham. Final stop. Here stands a tiny alehouse, lantern glowing amber. You could pass, but thirst thrums, and so does loneliness. Inside, peat fires crackle. 4 patrons nurse mugs. The alewife eyes your ledger. She knows. Everyone always knows. You pay 2 farthings for a cup, more watery than beer-flavored tears. Still, warmth seeps into bones and loosens tongue. A traveling minstrel strums a cracked citole in the corner, singing of Tristan and Iseult. But his lyrics slant body. Laughter rises. For a heartbeat, you feel human. Then the door bursts open. A lanky youth, red-faced, shouts, "Collector's here!" Silence smothers the room. The patrons swivel, expressions hardening. You stand, hands raised, muttering, "Tomorrow I'll call properly, ledgers in order." But the spell of fellowship is broken. Coins thunk on the bar, and you retreat to the door as if arrows chase you. Outside, rain returns, fine needles that soak faster than downpour. You lead the mule to the church porch. The priest, Father Aldous, appeared kindly the last time you met. Maybe he'll grant shelter. You knock. No answer. You try again, louder. Eventually, wooden bolts scrape, and Aldous peers, candle in hand. "My child," he sighs, seeing your load. "The nave is full of sick. Fever from stagnant wells. You risk contagion." You almost laugh. Plague, bandits, starvation, choose your poison. But exhaustion overrules fear. "One night under the eaves, then, Holy Father?" Reluctantly, he nods. You bed down on straw outside the door, mule tethered to a beam. Coins under your cloak, tally stick clasped like a relic. You shiver into uneasy dreams. Dream 1. You stand before the sheriff. He leans forward, eyes like black pits. "Notches don't add," he intones. "Explain." You reach for words, but your tongue is a wriggling eel. Crowd laughter swells. Stalks rise from the floor, jaws wide. You wake, heart pounding, the real stalks looming in mind. Dawn again. Time to face Gresham. Father Aldous blesses you with damp fingers, whispers, "Go gently." You wish you could. Gresham's cottages cluster around a green where 2 huge oak trees grow like guardians. Villagers line up, some by curiosity, others forced by the Reeve's prodding stick. You clear your throat, announce dues. Hearth tax, head tax, church tithe, wool levy. Faces range from resigned to murderous. First payer, Emmeline the spinner. Thin wrists, eyes dulled by lamplit work. She produces coins wrapped in cloth, each polished from nervous rubbing. Her roof leaks. She'll patch it later, maybe. You take the coins, aware that you are siphoning her candlelight and supper. Next, a burly man named Odo, leather worker known for temper as thick as oxhide. He slams his due into your hand so hard your knuckles ache. King wastes this on fancy feasts, he growls. You choose silence. Argument feeds fire. Third, nothing. A gap appears in the line. Muttering ripples. You call, Hugh the miller? No answer. Reeve shrugs. Hugh's wife emerges instead, hair disarrayed. Hugh fell ill, she says. Whispers behind suggest drunken stupor. You state the mill tax, 2 shillings. She pales. Millstones cracked last week. She offers half. You remember the sheriff, the bandits, the deficit. Sternly, you insist on full amount. Tears glaze her eyes. She doesn't plead. Pleading rarely helps. She returns home. An hour later, she's back with a silver spoon, heirloom from her mother. She lays it in your hand as payment. Guilt spears you. Silver spoons equal status. Now she's spoonless and statusless. You mark the stick. Spoon goes into your satchel. Collection drags into afternoon. Rain stops. Flies descend. Your voice grows hoarse, repeating sums. Finally, the tally is complete. Reeve thumbs your ledger, nods grudgingly. Villagers disperse like smoke, but resentment lingers, a taste you can't spit out. You head to the manor house, a squat stone rectangle with smoke curling from a center hearth. Inside, Steward Haman, pudgy fingers adorned with rings, greets you. His eyes dart to your bulging satchels. His lordship expects tallies, he says. You produce the split sticks. Haman counts grain, hens, coins, spoon. His brow lifts at the spoon. You mutter explanation. He shrugs, pocketing it, perks of rank. He signs a parchment acknowledging receipt, then slides across the table your fee. 8 pennies. 8! For days of mud, fear, and compromised soul. You want to laugh, cry, vomit, maybe all 3. Instead, you bow, voice cracking. My thanks. As you depart, Haman calls, Audits at month's end. Pray your accounts stay balanced. The phrase slithers down your spine like cold water. Outside, dusk. You should begin the journey back to royal seat, but fatigue clings like wet wool. Father Aldous beckons from church steps. There's broth, he says. You follow. Inside, benches hold coughing peasants wrapped in blankets. Aldous ladles thin onion broth into a wooden bowl, hands it to you. You sip. Warmth spreads, brief, faint. Across the nave, Hugh the miller lies on a pallet, face flushed. His wife tends him, eyes red from crying. She catches you looking, clutches his hand tighter. Shame burns hotter than broth. After eating, you help Aldous change soiled linens. He thanks you. You nod, surprised at your own hands offering care instead of collecting. Night deepens. Candles gutter. You find a corner near a stone saint and drift asleep amid coughs and whispered prayers. Your dream shifts. You're on a hill overlooking villages alight with torches. A voice behind you, the king, the steward, the devil, demands greater taxes. You protest, they have no more. The voice thunders, take blood if coin is spent. You turn, no one there, but in your arms rests a ledger soaked red. You jerk awake, dawn, Father Aldous' face above you. They need more wood for fires, he whispers, gesturing at the sick. Instinctively, you reach for coin purse, empty except for your wage. 8 pennies, enough for a warm pair of socks or... You swallow and press 3 pennies into his hand. For wood. Surprise and gratitude flicker in his eyes. You exit before generosity evaporates. Mule waits outside, load lighter. The road beckons. 2 days' ride to the Shire capital, where the sheriff will inspect your work. You mount, legs protesting. As hooves clip-clop over frost-stiff ground, you take stock. Tally sticks, balanced, mostly. Purse, thin. Conscience, thinner. Yet somewhere behind, a church is a little warmer. Your mind turns to the audit. You rehearse excuses for every discrepancy. Widow's discount, bandit bribe, miller's spoon. Will they suffice? Or will the sheriff require flesh to make numbers right? You've seen collectors lose ears for less. You touch your ear, as if pre-morning. Midway through the forest, you encounter a royal courier thundering past, cloak emblazoned with lion rampant. Dust swirls. He pauses, recognizing your insignia. News, he pants. Kings levying an extraordinary tax, war in Dascony, collectors to prepare new lists. He spurs on, leaving you frozen. New lists, higher demands, villagers already scraping bottom of bowls. Your stomach knots. How will you face them again? But that's tomorrow's scourge. For now, you focus on the path, on staying seated despite saddle sores, on the faint promise of a dry loft at the inn outside the city. Behind you, crows caw, perhaps debating which carcass will feed them next. You mutter, "Not mine, not yet." By dusk, you spy the inn, crooked sign of a boar's head swinging. Inside, smells of stew and spilled ale. You pay a penny for straw bed, another for stew thick with barley. In corner, merchants gamble with dice. You avoid eye contact. Merchants despise taxmen even more than villagers. Competition in greedy arts. You slurp stew, savoring salt. A man sits opposite without invitation. Cloak fine, eyes calculating. He introduces himself as Alan, a factor for a wool guild. He hints at insider arrangements. Collectors who nudge numbers can earn real silver. Bribery invitation, plain as day. You feign ignorance. He presses, sliding a shiny groat across table. Your fingers twitch. Groat equals 2 days' wage. You push it back, pulse hammering. Alan shrugs, smiles shark sharp. Offer stands, Audit week is hard. Comfort helps. He departs, leaving the coin. Temptation gleams until you shove it into stew bowl, burying shine beneath grease. Let some kitchen boy find fortune. Up in the loft, you lay among snoring travelers. Thoughts swirl. War tax, audit, guilt, bribes, cold nights, villagers' eyes. You count rafters like notches until sleep scrawls over consciousness. Morning, last leg to capital. Roads widen, traffic thickens, carts of hay, monks chanting psalms, soldiers swaggering. Walls rise ahead, stone teeth gnawing sky. Gate guards wave you through after skimming your writ of office. Inside, city stench, tanneries, fish stalls, human sweat. Noise assaults, hawkers, church bells, quarreling apprentices. But you hear only the imaginary clack of tally stick against gallows. Sheriff's Hall looms, banners snapping. You, stable mule, climb steps that feel taller each visit. Inside, long table where clerks perch like vultures. Sheriff DeLacy, broad, bearded, regards you. Ah, our wandering coin magnet. You present split sticks, purse, spoon. Clerks compare halves, counting notches. Quills scratch. Minutes drag. A clerk coughs. Ominous. He whispers to sheriff, who raises brow. Short 2 shillings, DeLacy intones. Explanation? Your throat dries. 2 shillings, the widow's break plus bandit bribe. You consider lies. But sheriffs taste deceit like wine. You speak. Bandits waylaid me, sire. I spared the king greater loss by bargaining. You omit the widow. DeLacy's gaze burrows. Finally, he grunts. Rather see bruises than hear tales, but fine. You'll make it good next round. Relief floods, then dread. Next round means higher quota. You bow, palms slick. He continues, new royal demand. Gascony War. Triple hearth tax due by Michelson. Start tomorrow. Triple. You inhale through teeth. Villagers starve already. You nod. What else? Refuse, and the sheriff conscripts you into the war. An even shorter career. Dismissed. You stagger outside. Market bustle feels distant. You lean against a wall, eyes on sky turning topper with sunset. Triple tax echoes in skull. You imagine old Lane selling her last goat, Hugh's wife surrendering baby's blanket, Odo sharpening knife. A shiver crawls. You could flee east to the coast, ship to Flanders. But desertion brands you outlaw. And where would you go where coins aren't demanded, where ledgers don't judge? No, you're tangled in this web. So you push off wall, head for cheaper tavern where ale dulls dread. As you walk, you practice the next speech to villagers. By royal decree. The words taste of ashes. He spends the night in a cramped attic room above the Lame Swan Tavern, lying on a straw tick that crackles each time he exhales. Outside, the city hums, distant laughter, a dog barking, wagon wheels clattering over cobbles, but he hears only the echo of the sheriff's decree. Triple hearth tax, Triple! The number prances through his skull like a demon juggler. When he finally dozes, dreams ambush him. Villagers with hollow eyes thrusting empty purses. Tally sticks snapping like brittle twigs. A noose twisting in the wind while coins rain from his pockets. Dawn peels him from the mattress. His cloak still reeks of wet straw and fear, but there's no time to launder conscience. Downstairs, the tavern keeper demands 2 pennies for a bowl of mush that tastes like sawdust glued together with tepid milk. He eats anyway, because fainting in front of peasants sends the wrong message. Outside, the mule stamps impatiently. Even the animal seems to sense heavier loads ahead. First stop, the city's scribal quarter, a cramped lane where parchment shops huddle like nervous monks. He needs fresh tally sticks, longer ones for bigger numbers. Inside a stall smelling of oiled wood, a clerk measures willow rods, slices notches, and eyes him with the wary respect reserved for people who can ruin your week by accident. Payment, 3 farthings. A stinging reminder that his own purse is the first casualty of the new levy. By midday, he's beyond the city walls, following the same rutted route back toward last week's villages. The sky is a pale wash, the color of dirty linen. Wind scuttles across fields, bending stubble left after harvest. He rehearses speeches aloud. By order of His Majesty. No, too cold. My good friends, the realm needs your aid in troubled times. Too syrupy. He sighs. Words won't soften stones, or taxes. Late afternoon, he reaches a crossroads marked by a weather-beaten shrine to St. Eligius. Someone has left wilted daisies and a crust of bread, offerings for safe travels. He considers adding a penny, but hesitates. Superstition battles frugality. Frugality wins. He moves on, clutching the reins. Nightfall pushes him into Birch Hollow hamlet, a place so small it barely justifies a dot on the sheriff's map. 6 cottages, a smithy, and a church half the size of a sheep shed. He'd meant to start in larger villages, but darkness presses and the mule refuses another step. Lamp in hand, he knocks on the smith's door. Sparks glow within, hammer still ringing. The smith, broad as an oak trunk, opens, wiping soot from his brow. "Evening, Master Herrick," the collector begins, voice cracking from disuse. "King's levy has increased." Herrick's face hardens like quenched steel. "How much?" "Triple hearth tax, due by Michaelmas." The hammer clatters to the floor. Herrick's shoulders sag. Sweat or tears sheen his cheeks. "That's 3 months' coal," he whispers. "Children will see frostbite before snow falls." Guilt prickles, but the collector presses on, scribbling the new total into his ledger. "Perhaps you can pay part in horseshoes," he offers lamely, a token kindness that changes nothing. Herrick nods stiffly, rummages for coins, places them in the collector's palm, each metal disc seeming to weigh a pound of sorrow. As the door closes, the collector swallows bile. First payment secured, yet he feels poorer. He sleeps in the church porch again, dreams of hammers forging chains. When dawn stretches pink fingers over misty fields, he sets out for the larger settlement of Dunford. News moves faster than he walks. When he enters Dunford's muddy lane, villagers already cluster like storm clouds. The reeve steps forward, jaw clenched. "So," he says, "the king wants thrice the embers to warm his feet?" The collector clears his throat, reciting the decree. Murmurs rise, anger fermenting. A woman in a patched cloak shouts, "We've no coin! Take the crown off his head and melt that!" Laughter ripples, edged with menace. He attempts diplomacy. War in Gascony threatens trade routes. Protecting the realm necessitates sacrifice. Words fall like stones into a pond already frozen. Reeve raises a hand. Silence returns. "We will meet the levy," he says evenly, "but the wool merchants owe us wages. Give us a fortnight." The collector consults imaginary flexibility in the rules. Sheriff's deadline looms, but revolt looms larger. He nods. "A fortnight, then." Relief sighs through the crowd until he adds, "However, any hearth found unregistered will incur penalty." Hope flickers out. He spends the day inspecting cottages, counting hearths. Inside each smoky room, he sights children huddled under threadbare blankets, old men wheezing by embers no bigger than thumbs. His stylus scratches numbers, tally stick grows forests of marks. At one cottage, he discovers a hidden stove behind a hanging rug. The family pleads ignorance. Penalty demands extra coin. They own none. He confiscates a wooden spinning wheel instead. The mother's sob burrows under his ribs. Evening finds him at the Reeve's table, eating pottage thick with turnips. Reeve confides, "Folk grumble about taking matters in hand. Banditry, riots, worse. Be wary on the road." The collector nods. Stomach churns. He notices Reeve's son, a lanky youth, watching him with eyes like flint struck against steel. Next morning, he intends to depart early, but finds the mule's reins cut. Animal gone. Tracks lead toward the forest. Panic tightens his throat. Without the mule, supplies cannot reach the city. Sheriff will suspect fraud. He follows tracks, dew-soaking boots. Among birches, he discovers the mule tied to a tree, unharmed but restless. On the ground lies a note scrawled in charcoal. "Take less or lose more." No signature. He pockets the threat, heart thudding. Returning to Dunford, he says nothing. Fixes reins with twine, loads sacks, moves on to the next village before dawn's full light. Road stretches ribbon thin. He ponders options. Lighten levies, incur sheriff's wrath. Enforce levies, risk villagers' blades. No choice avoids blood, just shifts whose veins spill it. By noon he reaches Riverbourne, wealthier thanks to a watermill and dye works. Surely they can bear tripled tax. Yet as he enters, he sees shutters closed, doors barred. Only the mill wheel turns, creaking. An old woman sweeping steps tells him the stewardsmen arrived at dawn, demanding their own levy for bridge repairs. Purses already drained. His stomach sinks. He convenes in the alehouse with the local alderman, a portly fellow named Osric. They haggle. Osric offers wool cloth instead of coin, citing merchant shortages. Collector hesitates. Cloth is valuable, but bulky. Sheriff prefers silver. Still, something must fill sacks. They strike a deal. 3 bolts of scarlet wool in lieu of half the coin. Loading the cloth onto the weary mule, he notices a small tear in one bolt, a moth hole maybe. Symbolic perforation of his authority. Nightfall forces him to stop at a wayside shrine where a lone pilgrim tends a fire. The pilgrim, a wiry man with kind eyes, offers roasted chestnuts. They share silence, broken by crackles. Finally, the pilgrim asks, "Why carry so many burdens under moonlight?" The collector chuckles bitterly. "Because daylight shows too clearly whose load it is." Pilgrim nods, pokes the fire. "Tomorrow is St. Martin's feast. He believed in sharing cloaks." He glances at the scarlet bolts. Collector looks away, shame pressing like a thumb on a bruise. He dreams of St. Martin cutting his cloak in half while beggars stand in line, each waiting for their piece. When he awakes, the pilgrim is gone, but a single chestnut rests atop the cloth. A silent sermon. Next village, Greystone, built beneath an abandoned quarry. Here, rumors outpace even hoofbeats. As soon as he appears, children scatter. Men gather, arms folded. The collector seeks the priest for assistance, but Father Hugh lies feverish. Instead, the sacristan, a grizzled veteran, escorts him through the square. Mid-collection, a stone arcs from somewhere, smacking his shoulder. Pain blooms. A second stone skitters by his heel. He spins, faces blur into anonymity. Sacristan mutters, "Time to leave." They retreat to the church. Doors thunk shut, bar slides. Inside, faint candlelight reveals faded frescoes of Judgment Day. Sacristan presses a cloth to the collector's bruised skin. "You gather kindling," he says, voice like gravel. "They only need a spark." Outside, stones drum the door. He spends the night praying timber holds. At dawn, silence. When he unlatches the door, square is empty. Stones litter mud like discarded intentions. He wants to flee, but obligations chain him. He scribbles IOs for those he missed. False comfort. On the road again, shoulder throbbing, he meets another collector, Mariam of the Eastern Circuit. They exchange weary nods, compare tallies. Her ledger bleeds red ink. 5 shillings short, 3 broken ribs courtesy of townsfolk. She rides side saddle despite pain, determination etched on her face. Sheriff doesn't care how, she says, only that coffers ring. They travel together to share watch. At campfire, she confesses she hides extra coins in her boot heel. Insurance against audits. He admits he gave pennies to a priest. She calls him fool, then smiles sadly. Better fool than corpse. They part at the fork, she north, he west. His path returns to Birch Hollow to collect remaining dues. But as he approaches, smoke curls above trees, too dark for hearth fires. Heart skitters. He crests the ridge and sees flames licking the smithy roof. Villagers form a bucket line, shouting. He spurs the mule down. Herrick sees him and yells, "Forge! Spark the rafters!" No time for blame. Collector drops ledgers, joins the line, passing buckets until arms numb. At last, the flames sputter, leaving blackened beams, ruined tools. Herrick kneels in ash, face streaked with soot and tears, his livelihood charred. The collector knows what duty demands, tax regardless of disaster, but humanity smothers command. He kneels, places a silver penny, his own, not the king's, into Herrick's calloused palm. "No levy today," he whispers. A murmur of gratitude ripples. But watchers note the gesture. Among them, the lanky Reeves' son from Dunford. He spits, eyes narrowed, then walks away. Seeds of rumor scatter on wind. With ledgers lighter than expected, he heads to the Royal Road, hoping to intercept a wagon convoy for safe escort. Instead, he meets Elaine, the guild factor again, this time accompanied by 2 guards. He smiles. "Heard you face resistance. My offer remains. Exchange cloth for silver. The guild profits, you meet quota. Everyone wins." Weighing options, he considers selling the scarlet bolts at discount, covering the deficit, avoiding punishment. But those bolts belong to the treasury. Misappropriation equals theft, yet failure equals flogging. Morality tilts like a seesaw. He asks for terms. Alan offers 10 shillings, paid now. Collector hesitates. Does he trust a man whose smile mirrors a cat eyeing hens? He stalls, claims he'll think. Alan shrugs, sets deadline, sundown tomorrow at the Silver Trout Inn. Decision gnaws him as he rides toward the capital. Thunderheads gather, rain lashes. By the time he reaches Riverbourne, roads are rivers, willows whipping. He lodges in the dyer's loft, cloth safe, yet accusing. That night, water drums roof, matching heartbeat. At dawn, Judgment Day, he must choose: sell cloth and risk future inquiry, or keep cloth and face sure shortfall. He weighs ledger columns like souls on St. Michael's scales, remembers Herrick's charred forge, Dunford's empty purses, Greystone's stones, remembers Sheriff's cold eyes. Finally, he wraps the bolts, mounts mule, rides toward Silver Trout. Inside, smoke and fish reek and twine. Alan waves from corner, coins stacked like miniature towers. Collector sits, hands trembling. Before words form, door slams. Reeves' son strides in, flanked by village men. Eyes blaze. "The cloth is ours," he declares, "paid in blood-earned coin. No thief shall hawk it. No thief shall hawk it." Elaine stands. Collector's head spins, caught between hammer and anvil. Tavern hushes, tension thick as porridge. Men rest hands on knives. Collector rises, voice cracking. "Stop! Cloth goes to the king!" Reeves' son sneers. "King never patched our roofs." A shove, a shout. Alan's guard draws sword. Chaos erupts. Collector lunges between, arms outstretched. A fist collides with his jaw, stars bloom. He staggers, hearing wood splinter, glass shatter. Somewhere, cloth bolts rip open, scarlet cascading like spilled wine. He falls, clutching his satchel. Footsteps pound. Then sudden whistles. City Watch enters, cudgel swinging. Brawl subdues under brute order. Elaine points, accusing villagers of theft. Villagers claim extortion. Eyes swivel to the collector, arbiter or accomplice. He tastes blood, forces words. Property of the crown, all under arrest if damage continues. Watchmen drag participants outside. Rain quenches tempers. At last, only he and Elaine remain with tattered cloth. Value ruined, dye stuff soaked, threads pulled. Elaine curses, stalks off. Collector gathers remnants, heart a tomb. He reports to sheriff next day, presenting wet cloth, half coins, bruised face. DeLacy listens, expression stone. Loss of revenue due to your negligence, he pronounces. Punishable by fine, 2 marks, or public flogging. 2 marks, more than he earns in a year. Flogging looms. He begs time to pay. Sheriff grants until Candlemas, 6 weeks, then dismisses him like a fly. He exits, legs wooden, soul hollow. 2 marks. Impossible. Unless he remembers Alain's abandoned offer, now evaporated. He thinks of pilgrimage roads, of vanishing into hills. But flight equals outlawry. No options. Walking alleyways, he passes a beggar chanting psalms. Coins clink in her bowl, alms of mercy. He nearly laughs. Mercy for some, none for him. In a narrow lane, footsteps approach. Mariam steps from shadows, arm in sling. I heard, she says, flogging or fortune, I choose fortune. She reveals a parchment, map of smuggler route to the coast. Collectors vanish there, start anew in Bruges. You coming? Seagulls cry overhead, as if answering. He imagines salty air, freedom from tally sticks. Yet he sees Herrick's burnt forge, Hugh's spoon, Len's milky eye. Duty like chain, conscience like weight. Which bondage is worse? Grab a pillow, pull the quilt up to your chin, and hush the outside world for a spell, because our poor, bruised collector is standing in a rain-slick alley with 2 paths yawning before him. Salt air freedom on one side, splinter wood flogging posts on the other. And somewhere, just out of lantern light, the sheriff's patience is rusting into something sharp. Remember to nudge that like button before it disappears beneath overdue fees, and drop a comment telling me which you'd choose, the lash or the leap. And hey, subscribing costs you exactly 0 pennies, 0 broken tally sticks, and ensures you won't miss the next twist when it creeps in like a midnight audit. Ready? Breathe once, steady, and step into the story. He looks at Mariam's map. Ink smears where raindrops have kissed the parchment. Scribbled arrows, a dotted track skirting customs posts, ending at a crude drawing of a ship under full sail. The promise of Bruges hums like distant gulls. But then another image claws up. Herrick's forge, charred and silent, heatless as the winter ahead. Conscience flicks its whip. He folds the map, but doesn't pocket it. Just studies the ground, as though an answer might sprout between cobbles. Mariam taps her foot. Decision time. The tide waits for no one, especially not debtors.
He raises his eyes. If I run, the sheriff seizes my father's cottage. Penalties ripple outward. Villagers pay double next quarter. My sins don't vanish, they metastasize.
Shh, she exhales through her teeth. Your back will too if De Lacy gets it. She tucks the map back into her sleeve. 1 week. Meet me outside St. Aldhelm's Gate by moonrise if you change your mind. Then she's gone, cloak flaring, swallowed by fog. Left alone, he trudges toward the collector's barracks. Inside, dormitory cots line stone walls like coffins propped upright. He slips beneath a scratchy blanket, but sleep plays coy. Each creak of timber becomes the crack of a whip. At last, exhaustion pins him. Dream. He's on a ship, scarlet sails billowing. But the canvas is made of those wool bolts, threads unraveling into the sea. Fish with tally stick spines leap, chanting numbers that equal his debt. He wakes, sweating, just before dawn. A bell clangs, summons to the Exchequer Hall. Collectors shuffle in, faces sallow. De Lacy stands on a dais, parchment scroll like a sword in his grip. Shortfalls increase, he announces, voice cold enough to frost ink. His Majesty's coffers bleed, and you leeches sip instead of staunch. Eyes pan the room until they spear our man. Walter of Linford, 3 pounds 4 shillings deficient, Candlemas or consequence. He unrolls a leather scourge for emphasis. Murmurs ripple across timber rafters. Outside, Walter, yes, we finally hear his name said aloud, leans against a column, pulse hammering. He has 6 weeks, but coins do not sprout on hedges. He needs allies or miracles. He starts with Father Hugh, the fever-ridden priest from Greystone. The ride is bleak, February wind threading through seams. Greystone's church sits under a bruised sky. Inside, Father Hugh, cheeks gaunt, greets him weakly. Walter kneels, confesses the looming doom. Hugh listens, then opens a cedar chest. Inside, sacramental plate. Silver chalice, paten, candlesticks. Hugh's hand trembles over them. The church belongs to the flock, he whispers, but a shepherd sometimes shears his own wool to save the lambs. He presses the chalice into Walter's hands. Pawn it, redeem later, God willing. Walter protests. Hugh insists. Tears burn Walter's eyes. He wraps the chalice in linen, mounts the mule. Next stop, the Jewry quarter of the city, only place where pawning sacred silver isn't instant heresy. He finds Eli Ben Isaac, a moneylender famed for fairness. Eli examines the chalice, weighs it, frowns. Beautiful work, but marked with the bishop's crest. Dangerous. Walter's stomach knots. Eli sighs. Still, I'll loan 30 shillings, half its worth, if you retrieve it within 2 months. Interest, 1 shilling. Deal struck. Coins clink into Walter's purse. A start, yet far from 2 marks. He heads to Riverburn, hoping Osric's dyers can spare more. Riverbourne this time smells of despair and fermented woad. Osric meets him in the mill house. No coin, he says, but the dye guild reversed fortunes. Indigo shipment sold high. He offers a promissory note for 20 shillings payable at Easter. Walter needs silver now. Osric shrugs. Take the note to Elaine. He traffics in paper promises. Walter's stomach churns at the broker's name, but necessity outranks pride. He rides to Elaine's counting house, a sleek building of oak beams and stained glass more garish than church windows. Elaine greets him with a grin razor thin. Scarlet fiasco behind us, yes? How fortunate. He reads the note, nods. I'll advance 12 shillings. Walter counts silently, still short. Elaine leans closer. There's another way. The sheriff auctions delinquent lands next week. Buy rights, squeeze tenants, profit quick. He slides a parchment across the desk, list of properties, including Birch Hollow's burned forge. Walter recoils. Herrick already on knees. Buying his debt would finish him. Guilt flares hot. Elaine raises an eyebrow. Sentimentality is expensive. Walter pockets 12 shillings and leaves. Add totals. 30 from the chalice, 12 from Elaine, 42 shillings, 2 shy of the mark. Plus, he must cover future interest. Days dwindle. He visits Herrick anyway, finds the smith rebuilding with neighbors' help. When Walter dismounts, Herrick smiles despite soot-streaked face. Your penny bought the first nails, he says. Walter helps raise a beam. Sweat and camaraderie blur lines between taker and taken. At dusk, villagers share barley stew under stars. A fiddler plays, laughter floats. For a heartbeat, Walter feels human again. Later that night, near the fire's glow, Herrick produces a small iron coffer. Village tithe for the levy, he says. Inside, coppers gleam, maybe 10 shillings total. Not enough, but our best. Walter's throat tightens. He cannot accept. Their need outweighs his. Yet sheriff's whip whispers. He compromises, records half as payment, leaves the rest. Herrick clasps his arm. You're not like other gatherers. Leaving Birch Hollow at dawn, he hears hooves behind. It's the Reeves' son, now riding the stolen mule's twin, a gift from wealthier kin. He draws alongside. We're forming a guild militia, he says, tired of distant thrones draining marrow. He offers Walter a place, betray the sheriff, redirect taxes to local relief, join rebellion. Walter shakes head. Rebellion breeds corpses. The youth spits dust and rides off, calling him coward. 2 weeks to Candlemas. Walter heads for the coast road, not to flee, but to trade fish tariffs for coin. In Saltwick, he negotiates with Captain Rolfe, who owes back customs. Walter offers to erase fines for 15 shillings. Rolfe agrees, but warns, storms brewing west. If ships delayed, no payment. Clock ticks. He lodges in Saltwick Inn. During night, smugglers raid Rolfe's warehouse, torching ledgers. Payment evaporates. Walter stands among charred barrels at dawn, ash snowing around. Hope gutters. Back on the main road, he passes pilgrims bound for Canterbury. They sing hymns, their alms purses jangling. Temptation whispers, a single cut of the strings could erase debt. He grips reins harder, rides on. Snow begins, thick as goose down. Travel slows. He reaches city 2 days before deadline.
coins totaling 57 shillings, short by 3. Despair claws. He heads to Eli, begs second loan on the chalice. Eli refuses, risk too high. Walter exits into swirling snow, feet numb, future bleaker. Lantern light glimmers ahead, St. Aldhelm's gate. Mariam waits beneath arch, mule saddled, eyes probing. Final call, she murmurs, ship sails by dawn. She counts his visible bruises, the coin-light purse, the hollow stare. They'll break more than skin, she says. Walter thinks of Father Hugh, Herrick, children round cold hearths. Someone must stand in cold, so others may kindle flame. He inhales icy air. I can't, he says. Mariam searches his face, finds the iron that taxes and lashes failed to burn out. She nods once. Then may your spine be steadier than mine. She presses a small pouch into his glove. From the cloth that ripped, dye flakes, worth something to apothecaries. She mounts, whispers, "Forgive yourself," and disappears into snow. Inside the pouch, crushed cochineal scarlet. He knows a spice merchant he'll buy. He runs, snow muffling steps, reaches the merchant's stall as shutters close. He pleads. The merchant opens a crack, sniffs dye, weighs. 2 shillings. Walter bargains, citing rarity after the bolt fire. Merchant sighs. Fine, 3. Coin clinks. He's still 1 shilling short. Heart pounding, he remembers the chestnut from the Pilgrim, long shriveled in his satchel, symbol of generosity. He pockets it, sighs, wanders streets seeking miracle. Then he sees it, a beggar child coughing by a brazier, tin cup rattling. He kneels, drops the chestnut, and feels the coin Hugh had sewn into the satchel lining earlier for emergencies, long forgotten. A single silver penny, 4 pence, exactly 1 shilling. Tears blur as he thanks the unconscious kindness of a fevered priest. Candlemas morning, he stands before De Lacy, tables groaning under silver heaps. Walter places 60 shillings, ledger balanced. Sheriff inspects, grudging nod. You've bought your skin this quarter. As he exits, back unbroken, he understands survival is temporary. Levies will rise again, coffers never full, lash ever ready. But he also carries unseen riches. Herrick's gratitude, Hugh's faith, Mariam's mercy. These coins neither king nor sheriff can seize. Sunlight is back, but it's the sharp, watery kind that shows every stain on your ledger. Walter squints at the parchment in the exchequer office. De Lacy's new ordinance sprawls across it like a plague of ink. The Crown calls it the renewal levy. 6 pence on every plough team, 3 on every goat, and, unthinkably, a whole shilling on every cask of ale leaving town. His Majesty thanks you for your continued diligence, De Lacy had purred while handing over the decree, but the sheriff's eyes were twin millstones grinding hope. Walter folds the ordinance with a sigh that tastes of ashes. Candlemas victory lasted a flicker. Already the tinder is piled again beneath his feet. Yet the quill in his hand refuses to start the new lists. He needs 1 moment, just 1, to remember the warmth by Herrick's forge, the hush in Father Hugh's chapel, the way Mariam's good luck pouch felt like forgiveness. Those memories stiffen his spine more than any steel corselet. Outside, market stalls bloom like bruises along the street. Purple-dyed cloth, Osric's guild thriving after all. Baskets of early leeks and barrels of salted herring from Saltwick. But merchants mutter under their breaths. Another levy? Tax'll gut us. Their resentment is thick enough to chew. Walter walks the rows, tallyboard hidden under cloak. Each face he passes feels heavier than coin. First stop, naturally, is Birch Hollow. The village seems brighter since winter. New thatch gleams on Herrick's smithy, and children chase a wobbly lamb around the green. Herrick himself is hammering horseshoes, sweat flying in the mild air. When Walter dismounts, the smith greets him with a grin that fades as soon as the ordnance appears. "A shillin' a cask!" Herrick wipes soot on his sleeve. "We brew 4 a month from market. Not profit, not luxury, just to keep ounce in bellies. Where's blood left to squeeze?" Walter's mouth is sand. "I bargain for waivers where I can," he says. The waivers are rarer than hen's teeth. Herrick's eyes soften anyway. Impossible to hate a man who looks ready to vomit from shame. The smith digs into a purse, lays out coins. Walter notes half, promising to argue down the rest. Inside, he feels the ledger's claws. He leaves Birch Hollow with fresh guilt riding pillion. Back in town, word spreads that the audit is coming. Royal clerks from Westminster, red-robed and ravenous. De Lacy orders all collectors to assemble lists and produce surplus to prove diligence. Walter knows the code. Find extra shillings somewhere, or share a cell with rats. Options? He summons the network he never meant to build. Eli, the moneylender, Osric, the dyer, even Captain Rolfe, whose warehouses still smell of smoke. They meet after dusk in the scriptorium of Father Hugh's church. Hugh propped against pillows, fever waning, but voice thin as parchment. Candles gutter, casting conspiratorial shadows. Walter spreads maps and tallies. If the audit finds shortfall, De Lacy will triple levies next quarter, he says. People will starve or rebel. The word hangs, flickering like candle flame. Eli clears his throat. "You need funds fast. Pawn more church plate?" Hugh lifts a weak hand. "There is none left." Rolfe offers cargo space. Smuggle luxury spices, sell untaxed. Risk of gallows. Osric proposes counterfeit excise seals, forged with his die stamps, even riskier. Silence swells. Then the dimmest voice, the priest's, threads through it. Fish. They turn. Hugh explains. Pilgrims soon flood the roads for St. William's feast. Each carries purse and appetite. Dried fish sells dear. Buy from Saltwick at low coastal duty. Resell on pilgrimage route. Pocket difference for the levy. Not theft, not fraud, just brisk trade. Rolfe scratches beard. "I can sail a sloop down the coast, fill hold with herring." Abraham nods. He's present too, Eli's cousin, quiet but shrewd. Osric can supply barrels, dyed cloth for banners. Advertise miracle fish cured under saintly moon. Walter's pulse quickens. A venture, legal enough, quick enough. They plan through the night. 2 weeks later, Walter rides north along St. William's Way. Behind him creaks a wagon loaded with Rolfe's finest barrels. Osric's blue and crimson banners snap in breeze. Heaven salt herrings, cleanse your soul, feed your belly. Pilgrims swarm like ants, money bags jangling. Walter and Eli's cousin Abraham serve fish at roadside. Coins pour faster than hailstones. Pilgrims joke that indulgences smell fishy. Nobody minds. Evening finds them counting silver beneath a hedge. They've cleared 40 shillings net in one day. At this rate, surplus assured. Walter should feel euphoria. Instead, he hears distant thunder, the sound of justice approaching late but heavy. For if he can raise coin this easily, why has the crown's collector never tried before? Answer: because shortage feeds control. He is greasing the gears of oppression with pilgrim pennies. On the 4th day, they near Stonecross, where rumor says the guild militia is drilling. Reeves' son, remember him? Now captains a ragtag force with pitchforks, staves, even 2 real swords. They surround Walter's wagon at dusk, torches glaring. "Collector," the captain sneers, "coins you clutch belong to bleeding hands." He demands the barrels and the sales purse for rebel coffers. Walter sees younger boys among them, eyes shining with reckless fire. Abraham steps forward, palms up. "Friends, we all hate the crown's hunger, but this silver will soften the audit blow. Without it, levies treble." Rebels mutter. The captain wavers. He knows hunger math too. But principle goads him. He levels his spear. Hand it over or fight. Walter realizes negotiation is smoke. Only sacrifice will quench this moment. He unlaces his money pouch, 20 shillings, and tosses it toward the rebels. "Half," he says. "Take it. The rest ensures sheriff keeps whip sheathed a while." Silence. The captain eyes the purse, nods sharply, yanks it up, waves his men off. Torches recede. Walter exhales. Abraham groans at lost profit. But Walter feels lighter, some scales tipping. Next morning, soldiers in royal livery ride by, questions sharp. "Seen rebels?" Walter points opposite direction. Small treason in aid of neighbors. The soldiers gallop away. Back in the city, Exchequer Hall buzzes like a hive kicked by a boot. Westminster auditors have arrived, led by Master Geoffrey, spectacles shining under candle glare. De Lacy greets them with a grin stretched too tight. Collectors line up to present accounts. Walter's turn arrives. He lays out ledgers, surplus of 18 shillings beyond quota, thanks to fish sales minus rebel tithe. Geoffrey flips pages, frowns at the fish income line. Pilgrim excise, new category? Walter explains method. Geoffrey hums, scribbles notes. De Lacy's brow furrows, innovation not cleared through him. Geoffrey finishes, stamps ledger with royal seal. "Sound arithmetic," he says. Walter's shoulders drop. De Lacy forces a smile, but eyes promise retribution, his power dented. That night, thunder finally breaks, literal this time. Storm hammers rooftops. Walter huddles in barracks when De Lacy strides in, cloak drenched, face dark. "Think you clever," he growls. "Auditors praise entrepreneurial zeal, but I know rebellion when I smell it. Coin missing. The purse rebels carry bears your seal. Blood drains from Walter's face. Someone informed. DeLacy slams manacles on his wrists. Trial at dawn for aiding insurgents. Cells under courthouse reek of mildew and despair. Walter sits on straw, wrists chafed, mind racing. Does he regret? No, but gallows loom large. He whispers a prayer to no saint in particular. If any mercy left, send help. Footsteps. Keys rattle, door creaks. It's Mariam, hair hidden under Warden's hood, eyes glittering. She slips inside, locks door behind. No time, she says. I bribed the guard with your rebel shillings. Stand back. She pulls a tiny saw, frees his wrists. Walter stares. If I flee, my father's home.
You paid your father's arrears with alms collected at Mass, she interrupts. Your debts are cleared, but your life isn't if you stay. She hands him plain clothes, bundles chains to mimic prisoner weight, hides them under blanket.
They creep through corridors, emerge into stormy night behind stables. A mule waits, Walter's faithful mount. Mariam thrusts reins. Ride east, follow the Roman road. At Dawnford, look for a mill with a cracked wheel. Safe house there. After that, you choose. He mounts, heart torn, duty or freedom. Thunder cracks. Inside courthouse, alarm bell starts to toll. Choice evaporates. He heels mule into rain. Days blur in muddy miles. He reaches Dawnford. The mill stands crooked by the river. Inside, rebels gather. Captain of Birch Hollow's militia, even Herrick, hammer slung across back. Surprise floods Walter. They greet him as comrade. Turns out that half-purse he surrendered funded weapons. Crossbows gleam. Plan: seize exchequer wagons on tax day, redistribute silver. Walter's stomach knots. Rebellion he sidestepped now draws him in like whirlpool. Herrick clasps his shoulder. You gave coin, give counsel. You know routes, schedules. Eyes around the room shine with hunger, some for justice, some for blood. He remembers DeLacy's scourge, Jeffrey's indifferent quill, peasants' hollow cheeks. Maybe rebellion is the ledger's only true balance. He studies maps, points out the weakest escort, the bend where ambush hides. The room murmurs approval. That night, sleepless on straw pallets, he wrestles conscience. Voices, Father Hugh's warning about pride, Mariam's plea for mercy, rebels' cries. Dawn paints frost on rafters, decision sparks. Ambush day. Walter waits with rebels among gorse bushes overlooking the causeway. Exchequer wagon approaches. 4 guards, chest chained. Rebels tense. Walter raises hand. No killing unless attacked. Captain nods reluctantly. They surge from cover, surround wagon. Guards draw swords. Walter steps forward, hood back. Stand down, he says. Silver feeds starving villages your own families trade with. The guards hesitate, recognize the crown's collector turned outlaw. In that heartbeat, the captain's arrow whistles past, lodging in lead guard's shoulder. Battle ignites. Chaos, steel against wood, horses screaming. Walter tries to stop bloodshed, but fury is unbridled. When dust settles, 2 guards lie wounded, none dead, but line crossed. Rebels smash chest lock, coins glitter. Villagers will eat, yet crown will thunder. Walter kneels by wounded guard, binds wounds with torn cloak. The man whispers, "Why?"
Walter gazes at scattered silver. Because the books were written wrong. Nightfall. Rebels divide spoils onto pack mules bound for villages. Walter knows he can't stay. De Lacy will unleash hounds. Geoffrey will revise reports, and Gallows crave his neck. He seeks Mariam. She appears like she heard his thoughts, wearing traveler's cloak. She smiles sadly. There's a ship in Saltwick, still owed a favor. New World Edges maps now. Granada, Lisbon, maybe further. He laughs bitterly. From tally sticks to uncharted seas. Harrick joins them, presses a forged horseshoe into Walter's palm. Luck for the road. Father Hugh's chalice has been reclaimed from pawn and gleams on Harrick's cart. Villagers insisted. Walter pockets the horseshoe, looks east where dawn will break. One more ledger to close, he murmurs. Feel that wind pressing against your window? That's the same east salt breath now filling Walter's lungs as he waits on the dark pier at Saltwick. And before we trace a single boot print farther, do me a kindness. Jab that like button hard enough the harbor rats squeak. Drop a comment telling me whether you'd sail to freedom or swing for justice. And if your thumb hasn't met the subscribe bell yet, let them elope right now so we can keep this lantern of late-night history glowing. Good. Hood up, heartbeat steady. Our fugitive taxman is about to gamble every coin of courage he's got left. A half moon smears silver across black swells, turning the anchored cog, Swift Gull, into a skewed silhouette. Mariam stands beside Walter, cloak whipping, her eyes fixed on the gangplank that should be down but isn't. One lantern burns amidships, otherwise the deck lies in ominous quiet. Rolf was supposed to bribe the harbor master, secure passage west. Something snapped in the gears. Footsteps echo on the quay. Walter tenses. Soldiers? No. Rolf himself appears, hat crooked, beard dripping spray. Change of chart, he grunts. Crown's patrols riddling the coast after your little wagon stunt. Swift Gull got flagged. Captain refuses fugitives. He jerks a thumb north. But there's a Norse gnar in Shallow Cove, creaky but fast. Leaves on dawn tide for Bergen, then Dublin, safer path. Dublin. Across 2 seas, kingdoms away. Walter eyes Mariam. Her jaw sets like iron. Open waters are cleaner than open nooses, she says. Decision forged. They follow Rolf down a breaker-strewn path, slipping between stockpiles of tarred nets and pitch barrels. At Shallow Cove, the gnar sea widow rocks under the stars, its master, Eyvind Hafor, leaning on the rail with amused disdain. He accepts Rolf's whispered gold, but warns, storms prowling from the west. We outrun, or we break. Walter boards first, breathing salt sharper than ale tax. Down in the hold he stows pack, horseshoe, ledgers. Yes, he brought them, crimes and all. Because something inside him murmurs that numbers must be remembered, even when wrong.
Dawn's palette barely streaks pink when the Na slips its mooring. Crew chants low Norse work songs. Mariam shoulders into the rhythm, hauling sail with arms toned from tavern kettles. Cloud banks heave on the horizon like gray fortresses. Walter keeps below, copying rebel account books into cipher. If capture comes, clarity mustn't. Quill scratches steady until a wave slams hull, sending ink across parchment. Above, wind howls. Walter climbs ladder and emerges into chaos. Rain knifing sideways, sail billowing like a mad angel. Eyvind roars commands, crew lurches from line to line. Waves rear double mast height. The Nar pitches so sharply, Walter's stomach leaps aft. Mariam grips the rail beside him, soaked hair plastered to cheek, smile wild. "You asked for frontier," she yells over gale. A monstrous breaker crashes, deck tilts, Rolf slides, slamming shoulder. Spar cracks overhead. Eyvind curses Odin and all lesser gods. Walter lunges, grabs loose rope, ties off with Smith-taught speed. Mariam scrambles up ratlines to lash sail clew. For an hour they wrestle sea until wind shifts and storm skids eastward, leaving shattered sky behind. When calm returns, no one speaks. Salt crusts their skin, but something new glimmers. Shared survival. Eyvind claps Walter's back. "Taxman with iron guts," he grins. 3 days later, Sea Widow anchors off Bergen's rain-washed docks. The city feels lawless but alive. Wooden warehouses stacked like dice. Fish oil torches spitting flame. Merchants hollering in 4 tongues. Here Walter expects anonymity. Instead, fate waves from the wharf in the form of Friar Benedict, the very monk who once audited church tithes in Walter's shire. Benedict's eyes widen as Walter descends gangplank. They duck into a tavern smelling of smoke and juniper. Benedict, cheeks flushed with surprise and mead, explains he fled Crown service after witnessing tortures of suspected rebels. He knows de Lacy has issued writs. Walter indicted for sedition and murder, though no guards died. Royal bounty, 50 marks, dead or alive. Worse, Westminster's Treasury decreed emergency collection squads, pressing double levies to cover insurgent damage. Walter's rebellion amplified oppression. Guilt claws. Mariam squeezes his hand beneath table. "That was always possible," she says, "but your choice showed people the books can be rewritten." Benedict leans forward. "Rewrite them properly," he urges. "Expose corruption. You have ledgers. Prove how sheriffs bleed coffers in the king's name." An idea strikes Walter like cathedral bells. Publish the hidden arithmetic. In Bergen's port, foreign scribes produce pamphlets. Hansa traders ferry news. A booklet, The Collector's Confession, could spread across kingdoms. Numbers as swords. Mariam rallies to plan. Eyvind offers smuggler contacts who duplicate broadsheets. Rolf, arm and sling, invests last spice's profit to pay scribes. Even Benedict dips quill, translating Walter's cipher into plain truth, minus incriminating names of peasants. They work in attic above a cooper's shop, press clattering day and night. Walter pens introduction. "These figures I gathered under crown writ. Look upon them and judge who truly robs the realm. Pages pile. Charts show levies doubling while roads crumble. Graphs reveal sheriffs' private tolls. Testimonies of widows puncture any doubt. They title it the People's Ledger.
First, crates sail with Hansa convoy to London, Rouen, Lubeck. Weeks pass like centuries. Walter and Mariam take modest room near wharf. They learn Norse lullabies, drink Brenvin, watch gulls wheel. But each dawn they scan arriving ships for rumor.
One gray morning, a Flemish merchant strides into tavern waving pamphlet, Walter's own. English dock workers pass these like holy writ, he laughs. Sheriffs tearing down every copy makes demand greater. Soon sailors whisper of unrest, markets shutting, villagers refusing to pay, chanting, "Show the ledger." Crown responds with iron, but fraction troops can't guard every hamlet.
De Lacy, we hear, was summoned to Westminster to explain. Father Hugh writes, a letter smuggled through Rolf's contacts, that Pevensey peasants occupied granary distributing tithe grain publicly. No one dares tax Birch Hollow. Herrick's militia patrol roads, now crossbow trained. Resistance grows not around swords, but around numbers.
Walter walks Bergen's rain-slick pier that night, staring at North Sea and thinking of lines inked so long ago by candle. He saved them to damn himself, but they became arrowheads. Mariam joins him, carrying a sealed scroll stamped with wax unfamiliar. Message from Dublin contact, she says. Courier demanded no payment, only safe delivery. They open it. Dublin's council invites Walter to advise on establishing fair tax charter, promises sanctuary. Further, a delegation sails tomorrow to fetch him officially, offering leverage if English crown demands extradition. Choice again. Sail to Dublin, help craft just tax system, risking capture en route, or remain hidden, continue pamphlet war from shadows. Walter's mind swirls like tide. Then rumble of boots. Harbor guard officers, red plumes. English? No, Norwegian royal constables, led by an English envoy. Word travels fast. Bounty hunters. Avon appears, breathless. Dockmaster tip them. Escape now, or iron soon. Rolf readies Sea Widow, but soldiers block pier. Streets choke with carts, no clear line. Mariam thinks fast. Smuggler's tunnel beneath Cooper's shop opens to marsh beyond walls. Walter gathers ledgers, horseshoe, the chalice Father Hugh saved. They slip into alley just as constables fan out, envoy shouting, "Seize the traitor accountant!" Tunnel reeks of pitch and wet earth. Rats scurry, water drips. Rolf leads, lantern flickering. Outside wall, marsh fog curls under half moon. Boat hidden in reeds. They push off, muffled oars part ooze. Yet mid-marsh, lanterns bob. Guards predicted tunnel exit. Arrows hiss, thudding into hull. Rolf curses, rows harder. Walter grips satchel. Mariam draws dagger, tiny but bright. Arrow strikes Rolf's shoulder. He slumps. Boat veers. Walter lunges to grab oars, Mariam staunching wound. Guard skiff gains. Walter peers, recognizes envoy. Geoffrey, the auditor. Spectacles glint. He calls across water. "Surrender, Linford. You're an accountant, not a martyr."
Walter's laugh is ragged. Exactly, so I know compound interest on injustice. He stands, brandishes chalice. Gold catches moonlight. Geoffrey blinks. Arrow knocked wavers. Walter flings chalice into dark water beyond boat. Splash echoes. That's what your tyranny costs, he yells. Guards gasp, value lost. In confusion, Walter rows furiously. Skiff hesitates. Geoffrey swears, but orders search net for chalice. Fog swallows Walter's boat. At dawn, Sea Widow slips from hidden cove with wounded Rolf below deck. Ivan at tiller, Walter at bow, Mariam plotting new course. Not Dublin directly, but Faroe first. Zigzag to shake pursuit. Sea is calm, yet decisions churn. Walter asks Mariam, "When does running end?" She answers, soft, "When books balance." He realizes the ledger isn't just numbers, it's lives linked by trust. His role no longer collector nor rebel, but keeper of honest account, wanderer bearing truth like lantern. They will sail, print, teach, maybe testify before foreign courts. He may never step on his native soil again, but perhaps one day children there will recite Charter of Fair Levies and not know his name. That's fine. Clerks erase names. Impacts endure. Walter pulls out ink, begins fresh folio. Navigation of Justice, a guide to transparent tithes. Quill scratches as gulls cry. Mariam hums hauling line. Eyvind laughs at horizon. Storms will come, but numbers, righteous numbers, now have wings. Salt spindrift crusts Walter Linford's beard as Sea Widow reaches open water. Behind them, Bergen fades into watercolor. Towers, spires, and the vague chaos of fists shaking over a lost golden chalice. Ahead, only the long steel blade of the North Atlantic, glinting under first light. Mariam ties off the yard, has bandaged Rolf's shoulder with ripped sailcloth, and now returns to the tiller, while Eyvind snores below. Vikings, it turns out, can sleep anywhere. Walter spreads parchment across a barrel and begins what he calls the last reckoning. Numbers calm him, like counting sheep for normal folk. He lists supplies. 5 sacks barley biscuits, 2 kegs salted herring, 1 keg fresh water, half-empty cask of Branveen, small pouch of cloves, currency in any port, Rolf's dwindling jar of pain powder, and a single slim packet of fresh-pressed pamphlets. The next column, distance to Faroe, predicted winds, margin of error. In the margin, he doodles a tiny gallows and writes contingency. But beneath the quill's scratch, his thoughts swirl. The crown will not let scandal drift. Writs are surely galloping to Norway, Denmark, the Empire. Traitor clerk and tavern woman to be seized. Worse, Geoffrey's spectacles will be magnifying vengeance. Walter flips parchment, stares at blank back. "Maybe you aren't blank," he murmurs. "Maybe you are the page on which we write immunity." He sketches a seal, a pair of scales balanced atop a wave. An emblem for an idea he's been mulling since the storm. The Free Ledger League, a fellowship of traders, scribes, and commoners who pledge transparent accounts in exchange for mutual protection. Numbers as passports.
Mariam appears with 2 tin cups of water, sits opposite. "Your brow's furrowed deeper than Rolf's stab wound," she teases. Walter explains the league. She listens, sipping. "Transparency," she muses, "is a candle, but candles need lanterns." She gestures at the pamphlets. "We launch more of these. Soon every harbor holds a lantern." Walter smiles. "Lanterns that reveal the rats." They toast with Luke water and agree once they reach Faro, they'll copy pamphlets in the monastery scriptorium rumored to welcome dissenting scholars. Then sail circuitous routes, Orkney, Man, finally Dublin under borrowed banners, lighting lanterns at every stopper port. Below deck, Rolf groans awake. Eyvind curses the gods for the racket. Mariam descends to check wounds. Walter climbs to prow, scanning sea. Wind stiffens, carrying smell of rain and something else. Wood smoke? He peers southeast. Dots on horizon, growing. Sails. By noon, the dots sharpen into 3 ships crawling like beetles against turquoise sky. Square sails, red crosses. English patrol cogs refitted for speed. Eye shields glint. They cut a new tack to intercept. Eyvind stomps up, squints. Royal pursuit by Loki's beard. They're heavier, but wind's wrong for us. He orders reefing sail, shifting weight, but they remain a plump gull on calm water. Walter runs figures. Distance, wind force, hull speed. Ink smears as deck jolts. Not enough. "We must disappear," he says. Eyvind laughs bitterly. "Unless you know magic fog." Walter remembers marsh, but no fog now, just endless clarity. Mariam emerges with Rolf, pale but standing. She clutches a leather roll, Rolf's spice vials. "Smoke," she says simply. They uncap powdered peppers, mustard seed, and cinnamon, too expensive to waste, but life trumps coin. Eyvind shoves tar-soaked rags into brazier on stern. Walter pours spice powder over flame. Thick, choking cloud billows, red-brown plume sprawling. The wind, fickle, suddenly veers, blessing or curse, and swirls smoke over Sea Widow, masking her outline. From patrol vantage, the Nar melts into a spicy cloud. But patrol cogs adjust. Arrows luft into haze. One thunks into mast. Walter ducks. Eyvind curses again. Smoke not enough. They need speed. "Dump cargo!" Rolf rasps. His eyes glimmer with fever, yet strategy rings clear. They heave 2 water barrels, half herring stalks, even the Brenvin cask. Eyvind groans louder than when Arrow missed him. Hull rises, draws less water. Walter seizes tiller as Eyvind rigs square sail to catch veering wind. The Nar lurches forward, Arrow volley falls behind. For 2 grinding hours the chase unspools. Patrols fan out, but wind favors fugitives now. Gradually, English sails shrink on horizon until sea swallows them. Walter collapses beside Mariam amid pepper-scented planks. She laughs shaky. "If we survive, every fish for a league will taste of cinnamon." 2 dawns later, the cliffs of Faro loom, green slicing blue. They anchor in sheltered bay near Kirkjubor, where stone church perches above turf homes. Monks greet them with wary curiosity, but when Walter produces one pamphlet, the abbot, Brother Newt, reads, eyebrows climbing. "Justice in arithmetic," he whispers. The monastery scriptorium, usually devoted to psalters, starts clattering. Novice scribes replicate pamphlets, adding Norse marginalia. Evenings, Walter teaches villagers how to tally tax rolls, spot false fees. Mariam trains women to brew medicinal ales for barter, circumventing cash levies. Eyvind repairs Hull, while Rolf, healing slowly, tells children tales of spice caravans, slipping in lessons on trade v. tribute. But spies ride waves like gulls. One night, Brother Knut hurries to the guest hall. A merchant arrived from Orkney, bearing rumor that English envoy Geoffrey has petitioned Norwegian king for extradition of seditious Englishmen sowing rebellion. Royal cutter may sail within days. Walter's presence endangers monastery. Yet their pamphlet stack is only half copied. Nutur proposes secrecy. He knows sea cave beneath cliff, old hermit cell, perfect hideout while scribes finish. Walter insists on helping, but Nutur shakes head. Your mind is ink, let us wield quills. You must stay alive to carry message onward. They argue, but plan settles. Walter, Mariam, and Rolf, still frail, will hide in cave. Eyvind readies Sea Widow for night escape as soon as pamphlet cargo finished. Next dusk, they slip along goat paths to cliff. Cave yarns like throat. Tide slaps entrance. Inside, candles reveal walls etched with runes, Celtic crosses, centuries of wanderers. They spread cloaks, share dried cod, wait. Waves boom outside like distant drums. Rolf sleeps, fever broken but energy thin. Mariam rests, but mind roams. She hums lullaby that blends harbor noise with childhood memory. Walter can't sleep. He studies runes, tracing grooves. One symbol, interlaced knots, resembles his scales on wave emblem. Fate winks again. He carves beside it a ledger page miniature. Perhaps one day another exile will see, no, they weren't first. Footsteps splash at cave mouth, the warning knock. Eyvind appears, breathless. Copy's done, but cutter entering bay. Must sail now, storm or no. They shoulder bundles, wrapped pamphlets, medicine, ledgers. Cliff path too exposed. Eyvind leads through submerged tunnel where seawater reaches waist. They slog to hidden cove where Sea Widow waits, sail reefed low. Rain starts, lightning forks. They push off as royal cutter anchors by main harbor behind them. Thunder conceals sound, darkness cloaks shape. Again, sea becomes coin toss between math and mayhem. 3 weeks blur. They hug coastlines, barter fish for water, dodge patrols. At Orkney, they swap Nar for smaller Irish currig, leather-hulled, faster in shallows. Ivan staying to trade Faroe wool. Farewell is bittersweet. Viking laughs as he pockets share of clothes. Your rebellion tastes expensive, he winks. Currig carries foursome southwest along Hebrides. Storms test patchwork hull, but Mariam learns oar rhythms. Walter computes tides. Rolf gains strength, his sling removed. They print pamphlets at island abbeys, paying scribes with stories and cloves. Lanterns multiply. Meanwhile, Europe listens. In Bruges, guilds petition for audit of tolls. In York, millers refuse new flood tax, brandishing pamphlets. Royal sheriffs burned copies in Winchester Square, but ashes blew into crowd, symbol perfect. De Lacy replaced, but scandal anchors. Geoffrey stands before Exchequer, blamed for failure. In Dublin, the council debates charter language influenced by earlier letter. They send fast ship St. Bridget to fetch Walter again, promising armed escort. When St. Bridget and the Curragh finally converge off Isle of Man, lantern signals flash and sailors cheer. They've read the People's Ledger already. Walter boards, hugs Mariam on deck, heart swelling at concept bigger than both. Crossing Irish Sea, Walter drafts charter terms with scribe Donchicha. Progressive levies, elected reeves, public ledgers nailed to church doors monthly. At first sunrise of second day, he and Mariam stand at prow, watching Dublin's walls glow peach. Rolfe beside them, face weathered yet determined. But harbor blockade surprises them. 2 English war hulks flanking Mouth, banners snapping like whips. Geoffrey himself aboard flagship King's Quill. Irony thick. Irish council's escort galleys attempt negotiation. English refuse. They claim right to arrest traitor. Standoff under gull-streaked sky. Dublin's shoreline crowds with citizens. Murmurs reach water. Sailors whisper, "Will Irish fight?" Councillor Afe turns to Walter. "Your voice lit these fires. How shall we answer?" He thinks of numbers, choices, candles. Then he recalls the chalice he threw, value sacrificed to principle, and knows answer lies in risk again. He asks permission to address both fleets. Rowboat ferries him. Mariam, Aoife into center of channel. Trumpeter blows. Walter stands, calls across water. Sheriffs hid theft behind law. I exposed it, not to topple crowns, but to mend them. If the crown arrests me, do it. Yet the figures remain. The ink multiplies. The world now knows arithmetic of injustice. Seize me, and every port from Lubeck to Lisbon will add interest to your shame. He lifts stack of fresh pamphlets, tosses them skyward. Wind scatters pages like snow. Some land on English deck. Some drift toward Dublin crowd now wading into shallows to catch them. Murmur swells into chant. Show the ledger! English sailors, many taxed themselves, read pages fluttering at feet. Their resolve wavers. Geoffrey yells orders, but helmsmen hesitate. Then something unexpected. Royal hulks lower drawbridges, launch dinghies, not to attack, but to retrieve pamphlets. A lieutenant climbs to quarterdeck, confronts Geoffrey. We can't hear, but see pointing, shaking heads. Finally, Geoffrey, face crimson, storms below. Flag lowers halfway. Irish crowd erupts. Bells ring from city walls. Council galleys escort St. Bridget through gap. No battle, just silent session. The world turned by paper. Dublin days whirl in parchment and proclamations. Walter testifies before council. Numbers projected onto tavern walls for common folk. Marham trains local brewsters to compute grain duties. Rolf establishes coastal courier line, shuffling pamphlets and spices alike. First enterprise under new charter. Months pass. Charter ratified. Copy sent to Westminster as olive branch. Adopt transparency. Trade will flourish. English court, embroiled in war with France, sees wisdom. They quietly draft reforms, present them as royal initiative. Geoffrey dismissed. De Lacy retires to monastic penance. Folk songs about Walter the Ledger Lantern spread along pilgrim roads, though Walter cringes at verses painting him hero. He insists scribes credit nameless villagers who first hid ledgers in bread. One autumn evening, Walter and Mariam climb Dublin's unfinished clock tower. Taxes now funding civic works, not sheriff banquets. City glows, market squares lit, public bulletin boards displaying monthly receipts. Children chalk math on stones. He breathes apple smoke air, remembers smithy sparks, first shattered abacus. Mariam threads fingers through his. "You balanced it," she whispers. He shakes head softly. "We're still adding columns, but tonight the books close clean." They descend to Quay, where Sea Widow 2, larger Nar purchased with fair trade profits, lies ready. Their next voyage? The Baltic, to help Hans Towns craft own charters. Rolf already aboard, heeled and humming. As they walk gangplank, Walter spots small iron horseshoe nailed near mast, original talisman. He smiles at its rusted arc, thinks of circles closing, tax rings, storm loops, lantern halos. He turns once more to crowd on pier, dock workers, scribes, alewives, ragged former collectors who joined reform. He raises lamp. "Keep books open," he calls, "and may your ledgers always balance toward mercy." Cheers roll like surf. Sail catches wind. Boat glides out under harvest moon. In his cabin, Walter opens blank ledger. First line, "Every coin counts, but every soul counts more." Ink dries. He blows candle, listens to creak of timbers, hum of waves, music of honest commerce. So, listener, curled beneath quilts, let that rhythm ferry you past your own audits and anxieties. The ship's lantern drifts farther, yet its glow lingers behind your eyelids, painting columns of comfort. If this saga kept you afloat through another restless night, leave a final tally in the comments. One word that captures what fairness means to you. And remember, history is just bookkeeping with better stories. Until our next midnight voyage, sleep sound. The taxman turned lantern keeper now watches the books, so you don't have to.